Well, I love talking, and I love talking about marijuana, and I love talking about marijuana to Republicans and conservatives and libertarians and freedom lovers. I love it more than anything else, and this is because I get to challenge people's principles and see if we really believe what we say we believe. All right? Are we in favor of limited government? Do we really believe in limited government? I think we all do. Yep. Do we really believe in freedom? And I think we all do. Now, does anybody here support, and personal responsibility? What about that one? Yep. We hear that a lot. That's what Republicans say we stand for. I think that's what we really stand for. And I think that's why most of us are Republicans or libertarians in this room. And because we've tested our views, and a lot of us have been to high school or college, we've dealt with the prevailing politically correct mentality, we've confronted it, we've survived it, and our views have been strengthened and battle tested. All right, so let's talk about these views. Limited government. Now I'm here to talk about marijuana, and I'm here to talk about medical marijuana, which is a very exciting subject, but the larger subject of marijuana in general cannot be ignored in this talk as well. Limited government. What is limited about a government that can prohibit you from sitting in your basement, in your own home, and smoking a joint? What is limited about that government? Nothing. Our government is virtually unlimited in its reach into our lives if it can prevent a person from smoking a joint in his room, alone, in the comfort and privacy of his own home. That is not a limited government. What about that principle of personal responsibility? Personal responsibility that we say we support as Republicans. How is it advancing that principle when the government acts as our parent and says, sorry, you can't grow this plant, you can't distribute it, you can't even possess it because we are your parent and we know better than you know. So go out to a bar and get wasted instead, please. That's what the government's message is. I guess my point is, and I don't need to go on about this, our Republican principles cannot be reconciled with the current drug war industrial complex. They cannot coexist. They cannot be. They cannot be. So, either we as a party get behind getting our country past this multi-decade, totally failed prohibition. Either we get behind that, or we just go ahead and admit we really don't support limited government. We are statist Republicans, and I know many statist Republicans, by the way, who admit they're statist Republicans and they're honest about it. And, you know, I disagree with them, but at least they're honest. At least they come out and say, yes, we want the government to be our parent. There are lots of those Republicans. I don't like them, I don't agree with them, but they're honest, okay? But those who say they're for limited government and say they're for freedom and then pay lip service to changing this drug war, we can't let that go on. Obviously, this is a group of young Republicans. We are not burdened by decades and decades of emotional, illogical thinking about marijuana. I give this speech to, you know, some of the breakfast clubs and groups like that where you've all been there. You know, older folks, love them, great people. They're with us 90% of the time. They've got a mental block on marijuana. Some of them, and there are certain exceptions to this, obviously, very good, shining exceptions to this, but most of them are just, they're not going to lead the charge. We, the young Republicans, the future of this party, we've got to lead this charge. We've got to be open about it. Now, is this about whether you want to smoke marijuana on your own? I don't think so. This is so much larger than any individual desire that you may or may not have to use marijuana. This is about freedom, and this transcends your individual passions or desires or anything like that by far. Let's imagine that we're in Prohibition. All right, we wouldn't be in this bar drinking, obviously, but let's think about that. And hearing the guys talk about Prohibition existing in our country now, in I guess it was 2009 when you were stopped for possessing alcohol. You know, Prohibition still exists. Was Prohibition a success? Any one of you who've studied, public policy and history and American government, is anybody here going to say yes, Prohibition was a resounding success as government policy? It was well designed. Oh, exactly. If you're a mafia don, Prohibition was a big success for you, but for the rest of us, It was an utter failure. We are still in 2010 dealing with the negative effects of prohibition that ended in 1933. Still to this day, and we're going to deal with the negative effects of marijuana prohibition. Unfortunately, our children are going to deal with those problems. So that's my pitch about the principled issues. Now let's talk about selfish Republican gains, all right? I think most of us here are Republicans, not all, and I love those who are libertarians. We need them as well. But most of us are Republicans. We're here because we want Republicans to win. We're here because we think we have better ideas and we're better at governing our country. We've got a guy running for 1st Congressional District. If you're running for that position and you're not in favor of marijuana in the most pro-marijuana congressional district probably in the United States, if you don't come out and make that a centerpiece of your, let's face it, underdog campaign, you can't win. If you embrace that issue, and I'm here to help you, by the way, if you want to call me in my office, I will help you do this, implement such a campaign, because it can be done. You're going to capture Democrats. DeGette is, resting on her laurels, sitting on her heels. She's not going to take a tough stand on this issue, and maybe you can push her to take that tough stand. But if we as Republicans can embrace the end of prohibition, I mean, we can capture a large slice of the electorate in Denver especially, and probably in Colorado. I mean, Colorado voters legalized medical marijuana, and they did so pretty overwhelmingly 10 years ago in the election of 2000. If that election were today, I think we win by even more. We're going to be looking at legalization in California. California may pass that. Let's face it, I mean, the economy is in extremis. I mean, it could be over for a lot of our state economies. Colorado, we're pretty lucky compared to a lot of the country, but still Coloradans are hurting. We're having trouble finding jobs, trouble paying our mortgages, can't provide for our kids. In my personal life, I represent medical marijuana startup businesses and some that are more than started up and that are very flourishing. I get to meet with entrepreneurs every single day. I get to help structure this brand new economy, this brand new cottage industry that is unfolding before our very eyes. I am so honored to be part of this. I mean, I talk to people, they're renting space, they're hiring employees, they're hiring electricians, carpenters, accountants, lawyers. I mean, they're creating economic activity. This is one of the few economic activities in our state that's happening right now. I mean, medical marijuana is booming, and it's supply and demand, simple supply and demand, laws that the government, despite years of efforts, cannot, will not, can never repeal the laws of supply and demand. The government can't do that. So the demand is skyrocketing. You've got 100,000 medical marijuana patients in Colorado who are legal to do it. There's going to be a supply to meet that demand. Whether the government tries to stop it or not is another issue.